circle. It's coming.
Okay, good.
So Jerry, you popped in. We were having kind of an interesting conversation around, and we love when you pop in, of course. We have an interesting conversation around you. Everyone has seen The Crying CEO by now, right? That went up last week. Yes. The most cringeworthy example, in my humble opinion, of narcissism and quasi okay backpedal marketing recovery. I don't know a better way to put it. But what we're laughing at, Sarah laughing at. So as a result of, we're not laughing at that guy still. We laughed last week, but we're not laughing at him anymore. The result is this website called viralpostgenerator.com. Oh. And I think the way I understood it is this guy, the crying CEO, because I'm not giving his company any press, but the crying CEO fits this formulaic post we see on LinkedIn. That is like, and
he's not the only one, right?
No, not at all.
Overwhelming LinkedIn at this point.
Hundreds of them. It's maybe thousands, right? It's ridiculous, but it's one sentence, paragraphs, and they're just so like cringy. They're so bad. so this viral post generator. Say again.
They all saved puppies after feeding the homeless.
That's right. I stopped and saved a puppy. I was late to my interview. Turns out the puppy was the company CEO, and I got the job. Yeah, like you can do it. So Jerry, what we'll do, I'm gonna pull up the viralpostgenerator.com, and Jerry, I want you to play along with us before we jump.
I'm in. Whatever.
Okay. So what you get to do, I'm gonna click start over. You're gonna pick, and I'm gonna share. Let me share it on the screen here so everybody can see what I'm doing here. All right. So this is the site. You're gonna pick. What did you do today, Jerry?
Oh, I talked to Roy Bellotti about Jobs for Humanity and what he's doing to help people in Ukraine get jobs. Would that be a cringeworthy kind of approach?
Perfect. Okay.
You can do a shorter thing.
All right. Let's just say I talked to Roy. How's that?
Yeah.
And what's the inspirational advice? Chase your dreams?
Yeah, I would say, no matter how bad it is, there's a rainbow at the other side.
Okay.
I don't know this.
I can't wait. So what did you do today? Sorry about this, Roy. Talk to Roy. The inspirational advice that you're getting is chase your dreams. And why this doesn't default on the high for cringe level, I think that's a miss. We're going to say write a post. Let's see what it gives us. You guys can see that, can't you?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. They're adding a secret viral ingredient. You got to love this. And Sarah, you're next. You're going to do one, and then we'll get started. Okay. All right, here's my LinkedIn post. Ready for copy and paste. How to be successful in life? Leave home and talk to Roy. Find your own place to live and talk again. Then you may chase your dreams. I talked in different places several times during my career, and it was key to my success. If you think, well, how is this possible? You will fail in business 100%. So to recap, the secret of success, all you have to do is talk to Roy and follow me on LinkedIn. Thoughts?
I love it.
Brilliant.
I love it. If I had thought better, I would have said a story that says talk to Jerry. We
just replay it the same. We could do that. All right.
No, we don't want to do that because there's too many people who actually would try to do that. That's the problem.
It's how I got here.
I feel like people already. Exactly.
I was 21.
Even Sarah would say, I talked to Jerry, and the rest of my career was history.
That was it.
So,
all right.
What did I do? Let's say I worked out.
Okay, I worked out. This is Sarah's. And Sarah, what's your inspirational advice?
Follow your passion.
Oh boy. Follow your passion. Again, cringe level. Phrase? Yep, there we go. Cringe level. Are you ready?
I am.
All right, this is for you. Here we go. This is whoever did this. It's so fun. It's quite brilliant because it fits that formulaic, one sentence, paragraph craziness that we're seeing all over LinkedIn lately. And poor LinkedIn to have to try to figure out how to police all that. Look at me. I literally worked out with my CEO yesterday. We worked together like it was a natural thing. For me, that's a huge milestone in my career. When I tried to work with my previous boss, she simply told me to follow your passion and ran off. Rude. All CEOs in the world learn from my current boss and work out with your employees. Agree?
100%. I actually did work out with my CEO today. That's
Oh my
me.
God. Well, it would be you, right?
It would be.
Oh my God. All right. So viralpostgenerator.com, free plug. So much fun.
Yeah, just don't
Is
don't
everybody
do that
And
shit.
stuff in it changes it every time. So you don't always get the same, because those are the same one we used earlier and it came out completely different.
Oh,
So
yeah. And the hashtags. I'm sad mine didn't have hashtags, but the one before it did.
yeah.
All right. Are we ready to get this thing going?
Sure.
Let's do it.
Welcome to the CXR channel, our premier podcast for talent acquisition and talent management. Listen in as the CXR community discusses a wide range of topics focused on attracting, engaging, and retaining the best talent. We're glad you're here.
So funny. I'm still laughing at that. So hola, bonjour, and hello, watchers and listeners. I am Chris Hoyt, president of Career Crossroads, and I'm the host of the Recruiting Community Podcast. We come to you somewhat live each week with interviews, sometimes drinking, quick catch-ups that are about 20 to 30 minutes in duration, and with industry leaders, personalities, analysts, and friends to talk about what our community members are asking about. And that duration, believe it or not, is by design. So we know you're busy, and we try to keep these to these sort of snackable episodes, but also engaging. So for instance, you can actually watch and listen to us live on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, cxr.org/podcast, where we stream and enable you to chime in with questions or just your favorite social profiles. So drop those in there, right? So that you can connect with other listeners as well as our guests. So please also be sure to click on the subscribe and like buttons so that you're reminded of upcoming shows, because including this one, we have some fun and informative conversations ahead. Now, we don't make any money from the show. We don't pay guests to be on, and you won't find us spending half the show endorsing something. If somebody or something is here, we're talking about a solution or a product, it is because we find it interesting and we think you might appreciate it, which is in part what makes us a little bit different. Now, I want you to feel like you just sat down with us in the break room, or that we're right next to you on the treadmill. Well, you're on the treadmill. We're at the water station behind you, but still including you in our conversation, even though you're slightly winded and sweaty, but comfortable talking so that it's not dangerous. Anyway, we're here, you're here, and while you're here, we're going to jump right in. So today we're going to welcome somebody that I have known for what I think is, she's going to correct me maybe, but for maybe 15 years. This is somebody who is no stranger to what we do. She's doing a great job sharing what she has been studying and learning with regards to talent acquisition and leadership. I want you to say hello to our good friend, Sarah White. Sarah, welcome to the show.
I think it is 15 years. I think 15 and 20 with Jerry.
Yeah, and speaking of Jerry is here for the show today. We're going to let him in. Jerry, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Life is good.
Life is good.
So Sarah, we're excited to have you on. You are the CEO and head of research at Aspect 43, but you weren't always, obviously. I think when I met you, you were a principal analyst all those years ago.
I think we actually met one before that. So I'll give a quick rundown. I actually used to be a practitioner, led TA teams, corporate. That's when I met Jerry. And he made this side comment to me like, hey, if you really want to go into other stuff, you should do cross training in other departments and learn business. And I don't think he meant to go quit my job the next day, but I did. I thought that's what he meant. So I quit TA the next day and I went into operations and learning the business side of it, started a company around doing software evaluation selection, focused on TA and performance management software. That was acquired about 2 years later. And then I went into head of strategy for what is now Clear Company, was HRM Direct at the time. And I think that's where we met at Kennedy.
Wow, great memory. Totally,
Yeah.
100%. I remember that.
Yeah. So one of those two jobs. So either the company that I sold or as I was going in, and then went in with Josh Burson to help really scale up the TA and start the TA practice. Madeline had been there for a while. Obviously, everybody loves Madeline. Came in, helped continue to grow that and do some work with Josh, and then started a company and, have worked with about 400 vendors and about 1,500 teams at this point.
Wow.
So just a couple.
I remember I was just starting to speak And I remember I forget what the topic was, but I remember you were up talking, and it was at the Kennedy conference. Great memory. I couldn't remember the name of it. And I came up after you, and I was like, that was really great. Thanks for sharing that, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how we met.
Fun story about that conference. I was actually not supposed to keynote. The keynote got sick. They asked me if I could keynote the night before. So I had to pull that whole session together and do that. And it was my first major keynote. It was also the first time I ever had wine. And that was, I went
in your life, ever
in my life. I went to dinner with Jerry, and I found out at that dinner that I had an anchovy allergy because he fed me Caesar salad for the first time, and
Jerry.
that it was wine. And I was like, 20, 25, 24, definitely not sold on wine.
Yeah, it's an acquired taste.
I love the fact that I can touch something.
That's what you get with Jerry. You get wisdom, wine, and go quit your job. That's
apparently anchovies as well.
Allergies and quit your job. Well, look. So a couple things I want to talk about, right? Because we try to keep these at around 20 minutes. But I think our whatever that was viral pitch website threw us off a little. But anyway. We have met, I want to jump right in. We've met with a few analysts and economists recently, right? And I think there's a lot of talk around in the space, more layoffs, right? Yeah. Or hiring freezes, or, oh my gosh, this recession. I'm using air quotes because I got to tell you, we're hearing from some economists and analysts that the recession ahead is going to be mild. Now we're hearing from others, it's going to be a shitstorm. So you said recently on Twitter, we better buckle up. So what do you mean? What is ahead for us? Is there something we should be watching out for? What are you seeing that we haven't seen yet?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. First, there were a number of economists that also told us that inflation was transitory and not going to happen, and that told us we weren't going to have big issues with all of the other stuff we were doing. Obviously, that is completely false and didn't work. And it's those same economists that are like, no, this time we figured it out. And so I think, right, honestly, a little bit nobody knows. However, when I'm looking at the other signs of what's happening, I definitely know there's a lot of layoffs coming up. Outplacement providers are getting tons of leads coming in all of a sudden, unsolicited. Yep. They don't get calls and they don't have huge numbers of growth unless there's layoffs planned and coming. So that's, for me, is always a pre-trigger because it typically takes somewhere between 2 and 6 months for that to get going. And so the other thing that we're seeing is mobility products. So products that are typically used for internal mobility are being shifted over, and the sales calls on them are being shifted for talent redeployment. So we have 1,000 jobs open, but we have to lay off 5,000. How do we redeploy 1,000 of those workers into these jobs so we're not paying severance plus having to pay the recruiting to get these done? Yeah. And that shift has been very heavy in the last 3 weeks.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, so those two things, regardless of what we look at the numbers, we have to remember a lot of the numbers are backwards looking. And so we do, a lot of our research, we're looking to what are you expecting to do in the next 12 months, not what did you do in the last 12 months. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of what we're looking at as far as buyer behavior, because we're a little bit different from a lot of the analysts in that perspective. We look a lot at the behavior of work and buyer behavior and trends versus best practices. And as we're looking at all of these things, we have a lot of reason to believe October is going to be kind of the month. There's a lot of companies that are waiting for Q3 financials to close. They want to make sure the stocks don't drop, or they're doing the first round of layoffs right now so that it's not a 30% layoff round in October. It's only a 15 because they did 15 now.
Right. Baby steps.
Sounds like a real incentive to tell your clients to renew in September.
Look, we saw there were some
saying.
I think it might be just
at our next corporate meeting. I'm going to make a suggestion that we offer some incentives for early renewals.
I would do it.
So Sarah, the earnings, I think it was it Lowe's and Target, and I think there was another big one on the news this morning. That no big surprises, but some earnings were lower than expected. And so that does sort of align with what you've said is that organization going to be preparing, but it's kind of, I want to ask you this because Jerry and I were just looking, we did a survey in the last, I don't know, we've had it up for maybe 3 months, where our members go in to these categories and they select, these are all of the systems I'm using. We have this extensive list to check which ones you're using, right? In the areas of ATS, in the areas of CRM, in the areas of, internal mobility, and like all of these different pieces, right, that come together to make the puzzle. And we get this really cool sort of lay of the landscape of what technology is being used. But we noticed as we scrolled through the results of that survey that had been up, one pie chart, just one, was all black. And one answer had been given for it across all of the organizations, and the answer was unknown. And that was around coaching and mentoring platforms.
Yes.
Which now I just want to tell you, we had Robin Erickson on 2 years ago. And Robin said, Jerry, you probably remember this. Robin straight up said, if you aren't already investing in internal mobility or coaching platforms, you're already behind. You're going to want to do this for when we come out of. And at the time, we were still dealing with the instant ramifications or somewhat instant ramifications of George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd.
Right.
So there's a lot of social injustice at work, right? And that was top of mind for everybody. Pandemic was just starting to hit everybody's radar and get crazy. And she's like, you're going to have to invest in this. But so we're seeing from our members, not quite yet in that area. What are you seeing?
Yeah. And I think when we survey, so we do our big research study called Insights at Work. Because of the shifts that are happening in the market, we're actually double surveying this year. So we're moving it from being a Q2 survey into being a Q4. So we'll have another one, but the data we have is very, very recent. Mm-hmm. And we found that for talent management buyers, we actually look at, I think, 87 categories of technology from TA through core. For those buyers, and these are double validated people with signing approval, 50% of companies right now will either be buying or replacing coaching and mentoring tools in the next 12 months. It's one of our highest areas, but you're right. Only 17% of companies still have it. And that's
or even know, or if they've got one, the employees don't know, right?
Well, and the other thing is, so we have something called uncertainty rates, and it is about 33%. So 33% of talent management, these are people with signatory, decision makers, do not even know what coaching and mentoring technology means. We don't know what this is, and we don't understand why there's any value. And like I said, our research is over 1,000 companies. We have from SMB to, I think our largest had 450,000 employees. It is validated to represent all industries, all walks of life. To get to that point in the question, you've had to go through 3 screening questions to vet you out. And so, of all the people that should know, that's them. And it's huge.
It's important to me because you are asking talent management, whereas we're asking talent acquisition folks. So they are even more uncertain about what the hell's going on in their own organization after somebody's hired. I find that absolutely fascinating.
Now, what's really interesting, I think you guys might find crazy, is because we break it up, they have to validate, I'm a TA buyer, I'm a talent management buyer, or I'm a core HR buyer. One of the biggest gap areas for TA buyers is actually in talent mobility. They don't understand why they should, it was shockingly high. It is at 60%. 60% of TA people did not understand why or what value internal mobility or hiring internal talent would have for them.
Is that all size companies?
All size companies.
I understand that though, because as people come up through the ranks of talent acquisition, right? They're not we're only just now seeing dedicated teams for internal recruiting, right? So it's never been on the radar of a lot of TA leaders to recruit internally, let alone give a shit what happens to somebody after the onboarding is done.
No.
Well, there's also all those restrictions that have been built over centuries, preventing people from being recruited internally for open positions. They have to advocate for themselves and often have to be in a position for a year or 2 years in order to do it. So those are obsolete ideas that need to be changed in obviously the largest.
It would be interesting, Jerry, to your point, is if we could do a pre and post of how many TA leaders years ago versus today are held accountable to any internal mobility metrics.
I think that would be really interesting, particularly, ours is not a unique set, but a set of companies, employers that are very large.
Correct.
So they all hire large, numbers of people. And because of that, are much more likely to think about internal mobility as an option, but in terms of executing on it, the question is, who's the champion? Who's supposed to be doing this?
And I think nobody has to this point. And what's funny is the number one issue for the very first time, because we also survey CEOs, hiring managers, kind of down a different path. The number one issue for them for the very first time ever was retention. Above inflation, above cost, above anything else. I've been running the survey for 10 years. And for the very first time ever, retention has taken over this year. And yet when we get into the HR teams, TA, talent management, core HR, there's such a disconnect on the tools that we know support retention and support the bigger corporate goals. And their both interest and desire in them. And what's very interesting in our research, and again, this goes across every single company size, there's a sticking point with people with a VP title.
How so?
Above VP, below VP, almost very consistent in their responses across the board. VP has a very unique perspective on all of it. On the issues at their company, at how bad the economy is, or if they're at risk. It's the only group during the pandemic that didn't take pay cuts as a whole. It was the only group. So as we were diving in, we went through all sorts of different validations, but we could not find any correlation with this group other than they all happen to be kind of the VPs. They're the less at risk. They also are the most risk adverse to new tech. And they're more likely to think their tech is working perfectly fine when everyone else at the organization said, no, it's not.
Are you speaking at HR Tech?
I'm not.
Never mind. You and I have a history about that, but that's a whole different story.
Calm down.
But the conversation we're having right now, you should be speaking on that issue, because I think it's a counterintuitive to some of the other conversations that are being had. And I think it's a very useful one for people to consider. And I'd love to see you do some more speaking on this issue.
And I think we're going to, like I said, we've been using it. We spend a lot of time working with vendors now. So we don't make any money off of practitioners. Everything that we do for the market, we do at no cost. It's all, we have a membership that basically puts in money to pool together to sponsor our research so it can go to the market for free. And then, we work with the individual different vendors in the space. And one of the biggest lessons we've had to do is stop trying to upsell and jump over everybody else and go just to the VP, because they're the first ones that are going to say no. Right. Yeah. So we have to get all of this. And so when we do the next round of this in Q4, we definitely are going to see if there was a correlation, or if this is something that just over the 2 years of the pandemic happened to be a fluke, because it was true for both pandemic years, which was the first year we started looking at kind of the VP in comparison to the other roles versus it just being VP and up. We separated them from the CHRO specifically.
Well, and that's not the only thing Aspect 43 does either. I mean, you've just published pretty recently this guide to talent acquisition technology. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we do 4 or 5 big reports a year. The Guide to Talent Acquisition Technology is designed to be a what guide, not a who or a how. And so there's so much on the market. So what we wanted to do is really pull together the landscape. Like, here's what a tech stack in TA looks like today. Not that you have to have all of it, but this is kind of what it is. And then we went through and defined every single one of the 34 categories. Because there's a lot of people, as we know from our research, they just don't know what this stuff is. And so if they don't know what it is, it's very hard to go by. And so it's kind of fascinating for me, being kind of a student of the industry and having come in very early. You know, it starts off with a little bit of a history, like, how did we even get to this point of what TA is? Where did we start at? How did we get here? What do today's TA departments look like? What are the roles? Who are the people in them? Who are the different stakeholders? And then a whole section on the business impact, like the true ROI, so that you can go build your own business case to support wanting to get this. And it's how do all of these things, not traditional recruiting metrics, but how do these tie back into business goals? How does this affect retention? How does it affect engagement? How is it affecting customer satisfaction? Like, what are the numbers and the metrics that connect these all together? So you can hand this over. I mean, they're not going to read it. It's 90 pages, but they can hand it over to an executive or pull blurbs out that a more senior person can do. And then obviously you have the tech stack and a full definition of all of those. And we're doing that, workforce management is publishing next week, very similar type of thing, and employee experience, and, trying to cover a little bit of everything. I know these are getting used in at least 8 universities as part of curriculum starting in fall, which is kind of a cool thing. Yeah.
Yeah. For those really quickly, hold on, Jerry, real quick. So for those who are listening, not watching, we've got a URL set up so you can grab that. It's cxr.work/Aspect 43. I threw it in the chat also. And if you've got questions, if you're here live with us, just drop them in the chat and we'll throw those at him. So sorry, go ahead, Jerry. I just want to get that out there before we move on.
Clarify another thing. These are all entirely free. So we do ask an email, just so we know that email only gets used to send that to you. It does not get shared with anybody else. None of our clients ever see that. No sponsor will ever see that. That is completely not used. You don't join a newsletter list. Like, it really is just,
no one's going to call me or email me about my car warranty.
Trust me, no one's calling.
One of the reasons I love you.
Not calling. I'm trying to sell you.
So it's interesting. So if you're pushing all that information out and you're gathering all that, you got to see some cool stuff going on. And I'll give you an example. I had a call this morning, Sarah, with the founder of iShield.ai. And you've probably already heard of this for those who don't know. And they're bootstrap, right? So I think they're having their big coming out party at HR Tech, or or on the floor, out on the market floor. But they are, I guess, marketing themselves as the Grammarly for inclusiveness, right? So they analyze both text and multimedia for biases. And I think they do job descriptions, marketing content, communications. It works in Slack and Teams. And within, I think, a handful of ATSs already. So these guys are kind of interesting. Like I said, they got their big launch that's coming up. But I want to ask you, because I saw that this morning, I'm like, ooh, I need some more information about that. But I guess I'd really like to hear your opinion of, like, who's making some sort of killer updates or strides or deliveries from a tech standpoint. Who should the leaders and watchers really be paying attention to, or seek out if they're at an HR Tech or an Unleash or something like? Who should they be going to talk to, going to look for?
I think I think those type of products, there's about 5 or 6 of them that are coming on the market. We had one, actually, we run a accelerator for small bootstrap companies each spring. And so we had one in our accelerator that's gone on to do some really cool stuff. And it was actually a group of college kids that had built it. And so I think we're going to see, probably over the next year, a big group, probably 10 or 12 of these type of products emerge. And as you know, they're all quickly acquired by the larger vendors, which is fantastic and what we're hoping to see. I'm always hesitant to say, go see this type of tool. And the reason is that the same tool does not work for everybody's tech stack, because they don't work with all cultures, everything else. But I think as far as the types of trends that we're seeing, we're finally seeing some stuff emerging around talent mobility that makes it actually usable, right? It's not just like hey, here's your internal job board, but it actually creates it with more of an employee experience and gives access to the recruiters. And so I think that there's that type of stuff that's going to be really valuable. The other stuff that I think is emerging and kind of has blown my mind is the stuff that is coming out, the new stuff that's coming out around contingent workforce management, which I know we've been talking about forever. But Fiverr actually acquired a company last year that's doing it right. And they're coming into the US this year. Okay. And it's really amazing. And it's not just, kind of the traditional contingent was focused more on your long-term contractors, your temp employees. This is focused on more how a lot of companies are doing work with these freelancers, with these kind of gig workers where they're coming in hey, I need a logo design. We need this. Yeah. Even the largest companies are doing that. And to date, quite honestly, none of the tech out there manages those people. We've been looking for 9 months. We've been looking at everything as part of workforce management. And that has been a group. And we finally got connected up with them just last week. And so I think we're going to start seeing things like Upwork and Fiverr definitely moving far more into the corporate world than they traditionally have.
This is why I love talking to you, because last year when that stuff hit the news, I bought me some Fiverr stock at a pretty good price. I'm not gonna lie, but now I've just been sitting here going, okay, where is it? Hello. I thought
there's one key issue that I think needs watching though, and that is when you move into the large companies from a contingent point of view, the tendency is that others besides human resources get involved, and we look at risk management issues. We look at the cost of benefits. So you tend to see decisions on the part of large companies of moving towards contingency in order to eliminate the benefits of people around that issue. And so fundamentally, a lot of people who would not choose to be a contingent worker lose their jobs in relation to that. And fundamentally, there needs to be education policy and some degree of security that has nothing to do with the technology,
right?
But that ensures that we do it well, and we keep some concern relative to the livelihood of your workers.
And I think one of the things that really made me excited about this particular product that I saw, like I said, I'm not pitching anybody's names, but one of the things that I did see is they actually built it in partnership with enterprise companies, in partnership with their legal compliance and procurement teams, as well as HR. And so it actually goes through and monitors all of the people that you are having work through this, and it will flag them if they're actually misclassified and should be a full-time employee.
Got it.
So it's doing.
I like that too, because that becomes the choke point.
Level. Right.
Yeah. Right. It's the choke point that screws things up when you try something, it's a great idea, and then you realize you're going counter to our societal norms, you're going counter to some of the legislation that exists out there.
Well, and this gets us, it's interesting because there's two issues I think we see that keep coming up. It's this one, and then we had a guest on recently where we talked about job sharing, which is kind of an interesting push too.
Well, as part of our workforce management report, obviously I totally geek out on the historical part of this stuff. So one of the things that I found really fascinating is I think historically we've always thought of people that wanted to work part-time or do job sharing, or if they were working part-time, it was because they were hoping to get a full-time job somewhere. And I found that only 38% of them, not our research, but large, I think it was, I won't quote who because I'm not remembering who it was, but it was a very large study. Only 38% of them actually wanted to go full-time ever.
Right.
It's a very small percent, which means there's a huge number of people. When my kids were younger, if I had the choice, I would have taken a part-time job over a full-time one any day. Without question. That wouldn't mean it was less valuable to the organization because I could probably do in 30 hours a week what other people couldn't, right? And so I think there's people, especially when you're given, I have a part-time employee who needed to go part-time following some family stuff. And in her part-time time, she was able to produce almost what our full-time people were, right?
And
She was focused and dedicated.
if you look at Starbucks, for example, they have a number of policies that focus in on giving benefits at a much lower level of work and providing help for people to go to school as part of their job. And the reality of that is that they know who is doing a good job as a barista at a Starbucks, and it tends to be those who really want a part-time job so that they can do other things and long term will leave.
I think everybody forgets about Buc-ee's. We're always talking about Starbucks, and nobody's talking about Buc-ee's.
We don't have Buc-ee's. We also don't have Culver's here. That was quite a shock when I moved. But
look, I want to keep us on track. I want to ask you before we let you out of here. And again, it's anybody who wants to get the tech report, the guide to talent acquisition at cxr.work/aspect43. That'll take you right over to Sarah's company site to grab that. But Sarah, let me ask you, if you were going to write a book about the state of the landscape of today, right? The state of the union for us, as it were, what would you title that book today?
Buy some beans.
Buy some beans? Okay, I'll go with that. Like, okay, so then you want to talk us through that?
No, I don't think inflation is coming to an end anytime soon. I think we're going to see some temporary relief. And then, obviously with the stuff that has just been passed, I think we're going to see a little bit more inflation coming. Not my opinion. That's the nonpartisan groups that are studying all of this. I think the other thing is that, layoffs are coming, right? I mean, we're starting to get the very tip of the iceberg of what is to come, probably going to see the worst of it October, November timeframe, which is never a good time for layoffs to happen. And I think as a culture, there's a lot of people at work that have never gone through this. I mean, I've gone through more layoffs than I can count. Anybody that was in work in the 2000s, layoffs were just like, oh, you got another layoff? Cool. Okay, next one, right? It was just such a normal thing. And I think we've gotten so used to not having that be the case, like not even every once in a while. And when we did see it with COVID, there was a safety net there at a very different level. And everybody knew it was more of a temporary thing. And then everything was going to come back. And I think that what we're already seeing on LinkedIn is a lot of people freaking out, a lot of people very angry, a lot of people not understanding that unfortunately layoffs tend to be part of the natural cycle of work, which I'm not saying is right, but it just is true. And so you've got a lot of people that don't have that context of understanding because they've been on kind of the market's been up, everything's been great the last 10 or 12 years. And then on the flip side, we're going to have those layoffs happening, which is probably going to trigger some stock stuff in October, end of October. October is traditionally not a great month for stocks anyway. It's usually kind of a rough month. And then we're going to go right into that a week later with the election, which no matter what happens, I think with this election this year, people are going to be unhappy.
At least half of them.
You know what I mean? Like it's
or just under half. Yeah. So buy
or it will be a mix, right? Like, so some are going to be good, some are not. And so I think, October and November are going to be a little bit of a perfect storm. And, get off social media. Like it's only like a echo chamber of, quite honestly, like cringe and hate. And a lot of times, especially as things get rough, it is, it used to be so good. And then the other thing is like, be smart, right? If you're at the store, buy a little bit extra. Like it doesn't hurt to have a full pantry, and be prepared, prepare yourself, save a little bit of extra money, like be cautious with your stuff, because if your company doesn't lay off, the worst thing is you have a little bit extra money in savings, you have a little bit more debt paid off, and you have a couple extra cans of beans.
All right. So buy some beans. Let me ask you, who gets the first signed copy?
Well, Jerry, obviously.
Man, Jerry always gets the first signed copy.
when he was like, quit your job and go into operations and get some business experience, he also should have been like, and buy some beans because you're a 22-year-old mom. And
now I've been telling folks that if you change your job with 10 plus years of experience, you need to negotiate, not more money. You need to negotiate the fact that if in fact the shit hits the fan, you are released, you need to be released against a policy of 10 years or more experience, not 1 year.
Right.
Because that's a cost to you that's going to really hurt.
Yeah. New trend is fighting for your exit, which is always fun in the interview. Yeah.
100%. Like severance packages. I mean, it's no different than prenups, right? Like prenups 20 years ago was unheard of unless you were like wealthy, right? Maybe they weren't. Maybe we were just super broke and dumb when we got married at 21. So could be.
I have nothing creative or constructive to contribute to that.
Where now it's, as more and more people I know, it's just become the norm. So that if something goes south, happens, there's not the fighting, there's not the stress, there's not all. It's just like it's done. I don't need any additional distraction away from my work, my kids, my family, my other life priorities. And I think the exit package is going to become, I don't know within the next 6 months or a year, we're going to have a lot of the kind of negotiating power that we did in the last year. But, I do think that over the next 12 months, people are going to understand why pre-negotiating a severance is going to be a very vital part of that.
If they don't already, yeah.
Well, to my knowledge, I don't think most people think about it, and most people find it too awkward to even ask when they get to that point. And that's when I tell them you need to be awkward about that. But by and large, you need to be able to think that through. Otherwise, you got to own it.
Look, I'll tell you who you talk to about this. You talk to Lori Rudiman. Go read her book. That never hurts to ask. You got to work it out.
There you go.
But I should have it.
I literally have it right off screen. Yeah, I have it on. Just out of my range.
I'm just right there.
Sarah, I want to thank you. Yeah, I want to thank you so much for coming in and give us your time. We really, really appreciate it. And then I hope we'll get you to see some more stage time and mic time to talk, because your insights are just great. And we always love. We're going to have you back. We always love to see you and talk to you.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys, so much, and hope to see you in Paris, Chris.
You got it.
Yes, Jerry.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna push both of you over into the green room. Here we go, and then hang out there for a little while. Don't go anywhere. I just want to share a couple things. Quick shout out though. I hope I say it right. Tova, Tracy, and Corey, a couple of the folks that were jumping in live and dropping some comments and some questions in there. Thanks for doing that. I want to share with you really quickly what we've got coming up or what's ahead with the CXR community. Obviously, Sarah White today on the podcast. We have a lecture series. We do it month to month. If you haven't seen it already, for our members, it's a super exciting time. We do a professional that comes in once a month, talks about topics that our TA leaders have selected and told us is super important and our folks have weighed in on. And so we've got time management coming up, and that's available for all of our members. Coming up on the 23rd of August, we have bringing back Athena Karp. We're going to talk about we're going to talk about the Future of Work initiative piece that she's involved in. And then in addition to that, we have a diversity slates topic from the community forums that kind of blew up and got turned into an event or a meeting. So we've got that coming up also on August 24th. And again on August 24th, we've got a solutions spotlight for Find'em. Pretty interesting new tool that we're getting some eyes on. And then lastly, we're going to round out August, unless something else pops up, with a remote collaboration with Lene Morkbach, and she's going to be on and she's going to be on here on the show, talking to us about that neat tips, tricks, and resources for getting the most and staying coordinated through all of that. And then I guess at that point, I'm just going to say, look, check it out, cxr.org/events. Join the community. See if you qualify with over 100 other companies and nearly 5,000 recruiting leaders and professionals. You can head to cxr.org and actually see what you're missing and, of course, connect with us. With that, I just want to say thank you, everybody, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the CXR channel. Please subscribe to CXR on your favorite podcast resource and leave us a review while you're at it. Learn more about CXR at our website, cxr.works. Facebook.com and Twitter.com/Career Crossroads, and on Instagram @CareerXroads. We'll catch you next time.